Welcome to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership, where you'll hear insights and useful strategies, as well as lessons learned from other nonprofit leaders and valuable tips from a variety of experts. Here to help you with the challenges and opportunities you face day after day is your host and nonprofit leadership expert, Sarah Olivieri.
Hello, nonprofit leaders, and welcome to your go-to place for information, inspiration to help you be even more effective. I'm your host, Sarah Olivieri, and you're listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. I have two incredible guests for you today, Christine Sakdalan and Miguel Valentin. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them, and then we'll dive into our conversation today. Christine is a life sciences and biopharma executive with over 25 years of experience in leading transformations at major companies like Novartis, Novo Nordisk, Amgen, and more. She is a trailblazer in building patient-centric solutions and teams. She has built incredible growth. I'm sure she'll talk a little bit about her experience in our conversation. And she is a passionate advocate for DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion, having founded a thriving nonprofit supporting young professionals of color. So welcome, Christine. Will you give us just a quick hello, and then I'll give an intro for Miguel.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for having me here and having Miguel. Really appreciate it and looking forward to our conversation.
Excellent. Miguel is an accomplished nonprofit leader with a strong commitment to community transformation and equitable access to opportunities for underserved populations. In his role as executive director at MVP, Momentum and Value for People of Color, Miguel oversees the fellowship program and the talent pipeline program, focusing on helping young people of color who are first generation college students and come from low income backgrounds. Welcome, Miguel. Would you give us a quick hello before we dive into our conversation today?
Yeah. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, before we get into specific tips, I'd love for each of you to share just briefly a little bit of your journey. How did you end up where you are today?
So I guess I'll start, Sarah. That's a great question. I ended up in pharmaceuticals in healthcare, I would say by accident. I never really thought that I would be in this space. I was actually a computer science and business major, and I thought I was going to end up in some financial company or, be in a financial industry. But somehow I ended up working at Pfizer in the analytics department. And I really loved it. I thought that it was a great industry. And I think it was not until a few years later when I realized that being in life sciences, being in pharmaceuticals was really very transformative in people's lives. And that's when I realized that this was the industry that I wanted to be in for a long time. And then I've progressed in my career at many different companies, like you mentioned, had different roles. And mentorship was something that was very important to me and something that I've benefited from. I've also paid it forward in many different ways. And I've also had just some personal experiences in my career that has led me to found this nonprofit that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I love it. And as founder, what is your main role? Because there's two of you at MVP.
Well, actually, there's three founders. So my main role was to establish what we were all about to begin with, right? So we established the vision, the mission of the organization, and we knew nothing. The three of us, Tina, Serena, and myself, we knew nothing about nonprofits. I was always in corporate environments. I was always in healthcare. But like I said, mentorship was something that was always part of my life, part of my career journey. But the other part that I think I was a bit oblivious to was just the underrepresentation, right? And I think it became very clear to me that we needed to do a little bit more work in that space to increase diversity in leadership. And so when we founded this nonprofit, to be very honest, we just wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And what we said at that time was, even if we make a difference in one person's life, it would have all been worth it. And so our job as founders is, again, to establish that mission, that vision, to establish the infrastructure. There was a lot of work to build out that infrastructure, to make sure that we continue with the momentum, to make sure that we have the right funds in order to sustain the work. And quite frankly, to surround ourselves with incredible leaders, incredible people like Miguel, to make sure that we get the job done, because we all have full-time jobs. And so we knew that as founders, it was not sustainable for us to run the business or to run the organization constantly and consistently. That was not going to happen. And so we also recognized that, we needed to bring in the right leadership and just really the right people, including the right board members.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of the reasons why I invited you as guests here, is because so often founders just go beeline for that track of becoming executive directors. And it's not the only path. And I think it's not always the best path. So I think it's really great to hear stories of folks who took a different path. And with that, let me turn it over to Miguel. How did you reach your way to this role as executive
Yeah.
director?
Yeah, my role's been a little bit zigzag. When I came out of college, I was a lot of what the demographic is for MVP. I was first generation in college. I was low income. I didn't have a lot of networking connections. My major was music. So there's just like not that many opportunities for growth and a lot of money in that. When I graduated, very lost, not knowing what I was going to do. And I was lucky enough to have some mentors in my life from college and other places that spoke to me about different possibilities. And one of those, I was really passionate about community work and service. And I decided to go back to school to get my master's in information science and then work in a library. So a lot of people don't know that I was a librarian for a time. And that was kind of my first soiree into the nonprofit space. Really fell in love with bringing people together just for a common goal, just to have them be there. We're not trying to sell you anything. We're just trying to help you accomplish whatever goal you have. And we'll do workshops and grant writing. And I was able to kind of grow in that space, in that nonprofit space. And I went from there to other nonprofits, different types of nonprofits. And then I ran into Christine, and their executive director was leaving for a different role, a different company. MVP started back in 2020, and this was in 2023, in the beginning of 2023. They were looking for a new ED. And we started having this conversation. And at first I was like, I don't think this is for me because I love my job so much. I don't know if I can jump into to MVP, but Christine is very persuasive. And the more we spoke, the more I fell in love with the mission of MVP and how it did represent personally, what I had been through as a young person of color, and how I could pay that forward to other people. And a lot of things that I had done in these different nonprofit spaces turned out to be exactly what MVP needed as it began to settle its foundation, to build out its programs. So I was able to come on at the beginning of 2023. We've launched a program. We've been able to grow the talent pipeline. We've helped over 100 people personally with internships, jobs, workshops, coaching along the way. So we've had a tremendous impact for being such a small, young nonprofit. And I'm so proud of everything we've been able to accomplish.
So I want to ask either of you about, so you're a nonprofit starting in the midst of the COVID years, a challenging time to get started and to build that initial funding. So that's my first question, but I just want to say it out loud, at least so I don't forget. I also want to ask you, Christine, about tips you have for building that talent pipeline. As Miguel just said, you can be very persuasive. So let's start with the funding, and then let's talk about a little bit your tips for building great talent and growing it. So who wants to talk about funding?
Yeah, so I'll start there with funding. So to your point, we did start in 2020, and what I will say, the context of that was very important. Why we started it around that time. I would say that discrimination, bias was, even more profound, even more visible, even more. It was just out. It was just so much out there, right? And it was kind of unbelievable to me that this was so much in the community. It was so much in society, and something happened to me personally that made me want to go, okay, this is it. I can't stand this anymore. I got to do something about it. And I think just like with anything in life, when you start with something that you're passionate about, you will figure out how to make things work. And even if you don't have a full planned out strategy, you're just going to figure it out. And you surround yourself with people with common missions and common passions. So I think that's an important element. The reason I bring that up is because in that period of time around funding, I did prioritize partnering with people who I knew had the same mission or had the same vision for helping others and turning something negative into something positive and transformative. So to me, you start with who are the people in the small sphere of your network, the ones that are closest to you that share that mission, right? So that's the first thing. Then you go and say, okay, where are the companies or who are the companies that can align with you as well? And maybe at some point you helped along the way, right? And so personally, I went to companies who I know I've helped in my own career, right? And it was my turn to ask for their help, because at one point they started small and now some of them are quite large. And so that's how we started prioritizing not just the people, but also the companies. But I would also say, truly, it is your family and friends, right? They're the ones that are closest to you. And so it's easier, if you will, to ask for money, right? And to say, this is what I'm really passionate about. Would you join me in that? And a lot of times it really is about starting with that passion, starting with having the people that you're going to envision the type of impact that you're going to make. And I think that's so, so important because at that time when we started, we didn't have anything. Like we didn't have an infrastructure. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have a program. I mean, literally, we just said we want to make a difference. And so part of this is making sure that you align with people who have those shared goals and those shared missions. And then you expand from there, right, in terms of fund. And it is not easy. It is not easy to fundraise. It is not easy to go and dip in the same well. And so we're continuing to learn. We're also now applying for grants. We're looking at this talent pipeline program that we're offering companies where, Miguel has done a really, really nice job to identify diverse students to offer in that talent pipeline for companies. And so I think looking at where we can go at scale is the next step, right? You start small and then you go broad with your scale. I hope that.
Yeah. And I think it really echoes the reality. I think any fundraising professional who really knows their stuff would recommend starting that way. But I think we're in this world where there is so much communication at scale. A lot of us are maybe even uncomfortable or not used to that kind of manual networking. Like maybe those first 3 contacts, maybe they're just 3. Maybe those first contacts are just 3 people, right? But 3 people, when we have close relationships, when we're actually communicating one-on-one, like on the telephone or in person, there's a lot of power to be had there. And there's a lot of potential that can come from a few really good relationships.
Yeah, but I'll let Miguel, speak to this as well, because he's the one that has amplified a lot of the initial work, right? Because that's important, right? You can only do the initial work for so long, right? And then you need, again, really great leaders like Miguel to propel that and to amplify that. And he's, brought in a lot of ideas, a lot of innovative thinking to, expand how we do fundraising.
Love it. Yeah, go ahead, Miguel. Tell us some of the things that you've brought that worked. And I also think it's always helpful for the audience to hear some missteps if you're willing to share some. Oh, don't go there. We all do them. And it's an important part of the process as well.
For sure, for sure. Like Christine said, a lot of us were kind of figuring things out as we went along. I think that's so important for any team, any organization, is to be willing to be wrong sometimes and to mess up and be okay with that. and you fail quickly, and then you learn from it and continue. So I think for us, when I first came on, a lot of the funding came from these larger corporations that Christine had known or played a part in, that had given to us. But like she was saying, sometimes those wells can run a little bit dry if you continually go back to them. And so we needed to find a way to diversify, no matter which way the economy was going that year, that we would find funding to be able to continue to help these students. So for me, it was that there was the core issue that we were trying to solve for, which there's not enough diversity in these leadership positions. There's not enough employment for people of color. And so what we wanted to do is be able to fill that gap. What's the easiest way to do that? Some companies struggle with getting diverse talent or retaining diverse talent. So how do we help that? And so for us, the solution to that was the talent pipeline program, to partner with companies and say, okay, we can help you find these students. We'll even help train these students before they even meet you, look over their resume, mock interviews, that kind of thing. We'll help you run the program over the summer with this structure. We'll do the check-ins, the workshops, and things like that. So that by the end of the program, students get a much better experience with their internship. They get put that on their resume. The company gets more exposure via MVP, and then also the student creating this pipeline that once they graduate, they could start working in this company. So we created a win-win-win situation for other people, and companies that in turn pay us for this program, for the structure, for the program in its entirety. So we were able to receive some funding from that. And that was so successful that each year, more and more companies decide to sign on to be hosts, to host more interns. And so with a vehicle like that, we're creating that momentum year after year to help more students, to help more companies, to get more funding without having to go to the same wells over and over. Everyone feels like they're not just giving for nothing, but that they're actually receiving as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think a key thing for everybody listening that you said in there was you asked yourselves, what's the best way to achieve that outcome? And I think so often, especially in earlier startup nonprofits, the tendency is to like fall in love with a program you imagined in your head and skip that really important step where you are saying, what is the outcome we're really trying to achieve? And then really thinking through, what is the best way? Can we make this even better? Can we make a win-win-win? Can we have it do more things at once? Is there another path that maybe would be more effective or faster? And when we take that step, we have this opportunity to avoid missteps. I also want to just highlight for folks listening, I've heard a couple times the well dried up. And just for anyone who's been like, if you're feeling like you're in that position, what I see happen here is when the first people where you reach out to, like Christine said, is we go to our connections, right? The people who love us. And often those initial donors, many of them, the mission they're aligned with is us, right? So like if I went to my parents and asked them to support my nonprofit, they will, because their mission is me, right? They love me. I'm their daughter. And they're happy, but they may not be fully aligned with the mission itself. And those people will dry up. But other people who their mission isn't, you personally, their mission is the organization's mission. Those are the types of donors who don't dry up. Those are the types of donors who are going to be on a lifetime journey with you. But it's so common, and it's a great place to start going after our relationships who will give to us. But just to recognize those are the ones that will, quote, dry up. And that's when you switch to donors who are in it for the same mission. Christine, you were going to add something, it looked like?
Yeah, no.
Okay, good.
I was agreeing with everything that you're saying. Yeah.
Any missteps, things that you, lessons learned that you would share with other leaders and founders?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I'll start. I know Miguel will have some other tidbits, but this was before Miguel's time. We had hired a fundraising expert to help us. It was a consulting agency that helped us with, fundraising best practices and how to do it. And we ran through scripts, and we did role plays, things like this. That didn't go anywhere. And that was kind of expensive. That was one misstep, at least for us. I'm not saying that that's not helpful for other organizations. I'm just saying for us as an organization, that was probably not the best investment of our time. I think we also in the beginning thought that if we invested in a technology platform right away, that we would enhance our ability to create a communication plan, to create a donation platform. And that didn't go anywhere either, right? Because we invested in a technology platform, but nobody was going to maintain it because we didn't have anybody paid to do it, right? And so part of the missteps for us would be thinking that a service or a technology platform would help us, when in turn we have to also think about who's going to maintain those things and who's actually going to run it. So
Yeah,
those were some of the missteps that we had at the
I love that.
beginning. I think the other misstep was on the board members' side. Perhaps we need to be more clear with people who are joining our board, right? That we are a working board, right? We are not a sort of a strategic board where we're just talking about ideas and concepts and that's it. I think that we had some different expectations going in, and some people that were who had joined the board initially may have thought that we were not a working board, and I think we still kind of go through that now, where we just need to make sure that we're very, very clear on the expectations of who is joining the team, whether you're a board member or a staff member or a volunteer. I think role clarity is super critical. And we've had a lot of missteps with lack of role clarity.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent missteps. I love them. and ones that you are certainly not alone in making for sure. How about you, Miguel? Any
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is, you had mentioned something about falling in love with a program or a structure and not pivoting. I think, for us, the fellowship program was so established, and you think about, well, what do young people of color need? They need education, they need mentoring, they need internship opportunities. And our fellowship program has all of those things, but it was in a way where it was so structured that some of the students weren't always engaging. When it comes to college students, they're extremely busy. Career centers can attest to this. It's hard for them to focus beyond the college degree when they're just trying to get through final week. So for us, I think it's huge for any nonprofit that you work for, any kind of people that you're looking to serve or community. What's so important is that you listen to them. You stop, you do the conversations, you collect the data, you do survey-based feedback and say, what do you like about this? What don't? What do you think should be better? And for us, we could have kept going. We did the fellowship program for I think it was 4 years, and we could have kept going beyond that, but we stopped and we listened to them and we shifted gears. Instead of doing the mentorship once a month with the same mentor and having this year-long commitment, we created this coaching platform, this board where you can go and talk to a lot of different coaches. Different coaches can meet a lot of different students, and it's on their own time. It's a la carte, and they manage their own availability and schedule. So we listened to that flexibility that they were asking for, and still delivering what they thought they needed and what they felt like they needed. But I think it's so important, and it can cause a lot of missteps if we don't stop and listen to the people that we're trying to help.
I love that you brought that up. I think I have lots of opinions about strategic planning and strategy, but I think one of the missteps of the nonprofit space is to move or contain that research part, that listening to your audience part in strategic planning that may only happen every few years. And I so strongly believe that that needs to be part of the kind of daily work of the organization, or monthly work or quarterly work, however you divide it up. But that's something that should be, a capacity that you have in your staff to be regularly evaluating your programs and listening to your community and understanding um, what may be needed, or getting data that maybe gets you to think outside the box to do something. And that it shouldn't be relegated to this a process that only happens occasionally. So I love that. Well, we are coming up on time already. So I'd love to ask from each one of you final words of wisdom, and also just take a moment to share a little bit about MVP and what you hope for its future as you move into the next phase of your growth.
Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, sure.
I'm always going first, so maybe you.
No, it's okay. I was expecting you to for a
Oh,
second.
sorry.
No, it's good. Any final advice for people who are in the nonprofit space is reach out to as many people as you can. You know, it can get lonely sometimes when you're trying to do something or push a mission, and you get stuck or feel like you're not good enough. That imposter syndrome can kick in. I think what's so important in the nonprofit space is to find other nonprofits like you, listen to podcasts like this, have conversations with others. When you don't know something, don't give up. You know, there's a solution for everything. You just need to reach out to the right person to help you understand something or to be able to accomplish what you need to. So no person is an island. I think that's my biggest advice. Reach out to whoever you can to get that assistance. What I hope for MVP is as we continue to move forward, that I just love the stories that I get when interns are done with their internship and they talk about the experiences they've had, the people that they've gotten to meet. That is one of the best parts of my job when they share that how life changing this has been for them and propelling their careers. And I just want that for more people. Simply, I just want people to encounter MVP and then receive that propulsion into their careers that they never would have gotten otherwise, a chance to showcase the talent that they already have.
Love it. Christine?
I love that. For me, I would say one piece of advice is don't be afraid to invest in the right people, the right leadership. That's what we did with Miguel. We have just propelled to the next level. Things have definitely built up momentum. And sometimes, when you think about your funds or your lack of funds thereof, you think, oh, can we afford to, to bring in someone to do this work? And I would just encourage people to take that chance, to take that risk, because if you allow for those kinds of limitations to affect your decision making, then you will be stunted in your growth. And what I would say is, and I'm not just saying this because Miguel's here, but, he definitely has been the best investment for us as an organization. And I think you just have to admit that, the founding members, right, especially if you have full-time careers, you just can't run a business that way. You can't run any organization that way. So don't be afraid to make that type of investment and to take that leap. But you got to make sure that you're bringing in the right person as well. That, again, share that passion, share that mission, and who has a bias for action. I think that's so, so, so important. And what I wish for MVP is for us to amplify the work even more and to propel the work even more so that we can impact more students. I agree with Miguel that whenever we hear of stories or when we meet these students, right, that say, I would have never have had this opportunity if it were not for MVP. I would have never had this internship. I would have never built the self-confidence in my public speaking, without MVP. We want to be able to do that for more students, for more young people. I also envision those same young people who will be the leaders of tomorrow, that they're also paying it forward, that they're coming back to MVP. And they could be the next executive director. They could be the next board member. They're the ones that are helping us to raise funds so that we have more people that we impact through this organization.
I love it. And I can totally see a pipeline for nonprofit leaders, a space where it is very much needed. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being here and for the work that you've done at MVP. And thank you to you out there listening and for all that you are doing to make our communities better. This podcast is here to help you do your job better, provide you with inspiration and tips like you have heard today. And just because that's such an important thing to do, I have also created the Inspired Nonprofit Leadership newsletter where you can get weekly tips, bite-sized and actionable, delivered straight to your inbox. And you can sign up for that at inspirednonprofitleadership.com/sign up. There will also be a link in the show notes. Take care of yourself, take time for self-care, take time to think through your actions and assess, are you really doing this the best way possible? Or maybe is there another way? And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and leave a review for the next episode of Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Until then, all the best.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.